What matters most to you and why? That's a huge question, and one that requires a great deal of thought before answering. How do you approach this essay posed by the Stanford Graduate School of Business and its application? Well, we've already done a video on that, and you can watch it here. Today, we're going to take you through an actual successful GSB essay and discuss its strengths and weaknesses. Hi, I'm Shinewald, founder of mbaMission, and I'm reviewing a full essay that is showcased in my book, What Matters and What More, 50 Successful Essays for the Stanford GSB and HBS and Why They Worked. If you want to read the essay in full, plus 49 others, be sure to download the guide using the link in the description below. Quick note, this is not a template. This is one applicant's answer. We encourage you to reflect and write about what is meaningful to you. Okay, let's jump in with the first paragraph of our example.
In Lithuania, one of the most Catholic countries in the world, it's almost inconceivable for anyone to leave the church. Yet, as I grew older, I increasingly felt that as a person of science, I couldn't reconcile being committed to an organization founded broadly on beliefs. Despite a rich tradition and the good guidance the church provides, I still felt that to be true to myself, I should file for apostasy, a challenging process. Several of my friends refused to be my witnesses and vouch for my sanity. In our society, one is insane to leave the church, because they feared I would be ostracized. Finally, finding two people who confirmed the thoughtfulness of my choice, I met with the priest only to hear him reject my deed of will. I had to find his superior to finally get my act stamped and my name removed from the baptismal book. Although I would no longer gain entry to sacred grounds and could not be married in my country, making my life marginally more difficult socially, I was nonetheless at peace with myself because I know there is no price for living by the truth.
Talk about storming right out of the gate. This is an aggressive opening. Only 3 sentences in, we learn that the applicant is filing for apostasy. Now, our writer isn't trying to tell us about the church, but he's sharing a lot about himself. In fact, he is even deferential to the church to ensure that he can be understood to be diplomatic. Nonetheless, he very forcefully asserts that he's an independent thinker, taking a symbolic step that disadvantages himself just to be true to himself and his conscience. That said, the next paragraph is really critical in providing this essay with some important balance. That way he isn't just storming the entire time.
To me, this is emblematic of my approach to work and life. I have always had strong opinions, unwavering whether they are aligned with the majority or not. From a young age, my teachers joked that one day I would start a revolution setting Lithuania straight. By the end of high school, my educator asked me if he could resign from applying for highest distinction on my behalf, rather than start a storm by presenting my candidacy, as not all teachers appreciated my independence as he did. I actually agreed to his request because grades and titles were confirmations rather than goals. Later, while at Vilnius University, I made my approach of a thesis advisor very carefully, seeking an individual who would strenuously challenge me because truth must withstand scrutiny. I found that advisor in Professor Sarkinis, our former chairman of the central bank. He was known to intimidate, but I just accepted that he pushed students to reconsider their thoughts and reveled in his constant challenges. Over my 4 years with him as an advisor, he expanded my view of economics and my perspective on learning. His most important lesson was not a theorem, but about debate and seeking truth. To oppose, one must understand his opponent, at times better than one understands himself.
Okay, we understand our applicant's theme to be independent thought. What's important to a B school is an independent thinker is still productive and isn't yielding to dogma or isn't trying to be an expert on everything. In this paragraph, our author talks about how he chose an advisor specifically to challenge his own opinions. In doing so, he shows that he seeks understanding before asserting himself. Again, this is a strong theme, but he's thoughtfully balancing it out. Let's move on to our next paragraph.
Equipped with my professor's wisdom, I have embarked on my career in investment management by building my brand on independence and truth. When the biggest mobile telecom provider in the Baltics was going public, I gave an interview about its prospects, wherein I stated that the IPO was a smokescreen to force a higher bid in a parallel private process with a competitor, as synergies in a unified company were far more compelling. Furious, the company excluded me from the IPO, canceled its roadshow for me, and even resigned on group insurance offered by our parent company. In the end, after its IPO, news surfaced that it in fact was in negotiations with its competitor throughout the IPO process, which was intended to inflate its price. Later, in an offering by 8 brokerages, an overhyped, fast-growing Lithuanian financial institution launched its IPO. Listening attentively, I understood that its CEO had admitted to 2 minor fraudulent practices during its roadshow and found its business model simply did not add up. I was certain the firm was a deceit that the market did not want to see. At the time, I was on a roadshow and was repetitively asked about that IPO. I answered honestly that the company was a swindle and that management would end up in jail. Not a popular thing to say. As I write this essay, the company is being liquidated and management is in custody in one of the biggest financial scandals in my country's history.
Okay, and in the paragraph we just read, we get the payoff. All this independent thought comes in the service of others. Our applicant is seeing through frauds that others can't spot. He isn't blinded by a good story. He digs deeper and sees that something's fishy, something doesn't add up, and this is to the benefit of him, his firm, investors, and his society at large. His independence is a superpower, not a crutch or a problem. Further, throughout this essay, we're not just learning about a character trait, we're also gaining a picture of an individual who's had distinct life experiences and will add a unique voice to his class through those experiences, through his knowledge of the capital markets in an emerging region, and more. It's a complete message. The applicant has an authentic voice and has led an interesting life. He concludes with the following.
Recently, I visited one of the distributors who asked me for another market presentation. When I was about to start my talk, the regional director stood up and said to his colleagues, "Quiet, let's now listen to the truth." Maybe just a brief utterance, but also the most rewarding moment of my career, when it became clear to me that truth is not a liability, but a way to help and shape reality.
Okay, so that was a nice wrap to a well-constructed essay. Of course, there are risks in writing somewhat aggressively, writing about a minorly controversial topic, but we know what this applicant stands for, and it certainly manifests in this essay, as it no doubt did when he was on campus at the GSB. Okay, so if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, and for even more HBS and GSB essay examples, download our full guide, What Matters and What More, 50 successful essays for the Stanford GSB and HBS and why they worked. You can also sign up for a free consultation to speak with me or another mbaMission consultant about your GSB application or really anything related to MBA applications. We're here to give you our expert opinion and help you on your journey. Finally, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for even more MBA application tips and advice. Thanks so much for watching, and good luck with your applications.